Welcome back, everyone. It's the Midwest Fanatic. We are back with our Tuesday Week 8 preview show. And man, I've had a night to have that victory yesterday sink in on us, kind of see where we're at the 1/3 mark of the season. And I'm even more jacked up than I was yesterday. What an absolutely amazing win. I don't think it really hit me what we have accomplished. Probably the top three most difficult games on our schedule with the Ravens and maybe at Bills mixed in there. And just once again, just an unbelievable team performance yesterday by the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, we're not throwing the ball well. We're not finessing it well. But, man, we're just running over people. We're beating people with just being better athletes and being tougher, stronger, and a smarter football team. Once Patrick Mahomes figures out these interceptions, man, I'll tell you what, we're going to be tough to beat. You know, an interception in every single game and you're 6-0. It's absolutely nuts. So, once again, welcome in episode 4 here, getting started with a jam-packed Week 8, all kinds of storylines going on, NBA getting started, and of course, everything's going to be from the viewpoint of the Kansas City Chiefs and Giannis and Damian Lillard, and see what they can get started for the beginning of their season. But yeah, just want to touch base again. Yesterday's game against the 49ers was an absolute clinic in ball control offense, being more physical, and just being the team at the end of the game like Mahomes has done all year. And he's going to figure out the passing game and get some stuff clicking in that department. So let's kind of talk about what we're going to talk about on the show. We're going to kind of talk about the Chiefs' projection here in the next few weeks and what they got going on. We're going to talk about last night's games, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. Both of those games were very, very interesting games. A lot of action, a lot of things happened, and obviously it all affects the Chiefs. So we're going to talk about what happened there and our viewpoint on all of it. And then we're going to kind of introduce a new segment that I didn't do last week. I'm going to give you my power rankings. Every week we're going to talk about the top 10 teams in the National Football League. And maybe some fringe teams that didn't quite make the cut that are worth mentioning. These are the teams that are in that proverbial Super Bowl bubble. We're going to see what is going to be the competition that the Chiefs could run into in the Super Bowl. We're going to keep them ranked, and we have a couple interesting mentions in that list, and so we'll be doing that weekly on Tuesday pregame show for Week 8. Of course, we are going to preview Week 8. Lots still to talk about Week 7, but we are going to preview Week 8. Week 8 is got a lot of interesting matchups, some divisional matchups. Of course, going to talk about games to watch, and then just like last week, we are going to make 3 picks with some betting lines. 2-1. Last week started out 2-0. We'll talk about the Ravens game here in a second. That should have worked out for me. And then last but not least, we are going to talk about maybe the Chiefs' offensive trade targets. And the trade deadline is coming up, people, November 9th. So right after we vote in the election, we're going to look and see if the Chiefs make a trade. Usually they do that right at the very end, and it's a little bit less blockbuster than we would like it to be. But we're going to talk about some bigger storylines on some players that I've heard that have been linked to the Chiefs, and then we'll talk about maybe what the realistic option is, when it comes to that stuff. And so let's go ahead and kick it off here with just kind of talking about where the Chiefs are right now. The Chiefs are obviously the best team in the National Football League. They're going to top my power rankings here soon. That being said, it's that much more impressive with what they've done. Road games, taking everybody's best shot, one of the hardest schedules in the league. Bengals, Ravens, Niners, mixed in with some teams. That's a really good, really tough schedule. A championship schedule, a division winners schedule. So as it should be hard. We're the Chiefs. But it has been top 3 most difficult schedule in the league through 7 weeks, dealing with every possible injury to major offensive players. We did lose another defensive player we're going to talk about a little bit later in Jalen Watson, probably for the year, which is a negative. That's going to really hurt the secondary. We're going to have to adjust there. But and this team is undefeated. We haven't thrown the ball well. We haven't been efficient. We haven't cracked 30 points. But we are winning in basically every other department in football. Outside of throwing for a lot of yards, we are literally winning in every single category that you can possibly imagine. Best quarterback, best defense, best coach, best defensive coordinator. The list goes on and on and on. We are even far negative in the turnover battle, probably like -3 or 4 in the turnover ratio all year. It does not matter. And now the schedule really will soften up as we move forward here. So looking forward to the softer schedule and being able to really stack some wins and get to it, because we are going to talk about something off the top here that I don't think people have really thought about too much, and that is the Chiefs have a chance to lock up the 1 seed. I've been hammering the 1 seed on this channel and talking about how important that's going to be for a possible three-peat, especially with the weapons we're missing, is we could lock it up historically early. Week 14, we could lock up the 1 seed and be resting players for a month and a half, 5 weeks until the final game, or for the first divisional round game. We are 3 games ahead in the loss column of the Ravens. They're at the top of everybody's list in power rankings, top 3, but we're 3 games ahead of them. 2 in the loss column. Of course, we'll have the head-to-head tiebreaker, so they will have to be better than us by 3 games to get the 1 seed from us. Houston lost. That was huge. Touched base on that on Sunday night, but that is huge. We are 2 games up on them. If we beat them, I think it's week 13, 14, 15, we could lock up the 1 seed before anybody in history has ever done it. And so that's another way this team can make history. And then the other question is, can we get to that point in the season while we're undefeated? We are going to be able to rattle off some wins here. We do have, of course, the Raiders. It's going to be the handle it when it handles game, the Kermit the Frog game, whatever you want to call it. Patrick is going to put on the white jersey, and he's going to roast those boys. My projection is 3+ touchdowns, 300 yards passing, rushing. We are going to beat the heck out of those guys, and we all know why. If you don't know why, just type in Raiders and Kermit the Frog in any internet search, and you'll find that. But point being is that we could wrap it all up and move forward here. The next game after that would be the Denver Broncos, I believe. Sorry, it's the Tampa Bay Bucks. It's going to be the Tampa Bay Bucks. We all know what happened last night. They just lost their top 2 receivers, and they're one of the best 2 receivers in the league, Godwin and Evans. Both got hurt. Godwin, multiple week injuries, shouldn't have even played. Let's call it what it is. And Godwin is now out with a dislocated ankle. Really feel bad for that guy in garbage time going down last night, and going to hurt the Bucks. It's going to hurt the NFL fans. He's a great player, second leading receiver in receiving yards in the league, and I feel bad for him. It's going to be a tough road back for him. That was a bad play, and shouldn't have even been in. But once again, Chiefs perspective, we play them. It's going to be tough for Baker Mayfield to come into Arrowhead Stadium without Mike Evans and without Chris Godwin and get a victory there. I just don't see that happening. So that's going to be another win. So that's 8-0. Then we play the Denver Broncos. Not sure where we play them. Should not matter. We should win either way. That'll be 9-0, and that'll bring us to the Bills game. We are at Buffalo. Should be 9-0. If we win that game and go to 10-0, it'll depend what happens around us, like with the Ravens and Houston. But let's say those teams both lose 1 game, maybe 2 games in Houston's case on the way there. It might not even matter what happens in that Houston game. We could lock the 1 seed up by the 12th or 13th week of the season, being 13-0 and 4 games ahead of everybody else. I mean, I don't know if that has ever happened in the history of NFL football. I know it hasn't happened with the Chiefs that anywhere near that early. Usually it's week 15 to 16. You do it by 13. That would be some more history of the Chiefs to make. So getting to 9-0, that shouldn't be an issue. Anything short of that will be a disappointment. We could be underdogs by just a couple of points in Buffalo, so that'll be a coin flip game. So taking a step back from the Chiefs, let's talk about how it went down Sunday and Monday night. Normally, I don't really love the schedule with these the Monday night games, the Sunday night games. I feel like they always put a pumpkin in there, and they end up not being good games. But these games were exciting, especially early in these ball games. The matchups were very interesting. We'll start with Sunday Night Football. While I was recording my Chiefs reaction video, I kept looking up at the screen a couple of times, checking it out. But point being is that the Jets showed us who they really are. I mentioned it in my Week 7 preview. Go check it out. But yeah, I said even if this was before Devontae even went to the Jets, I said even if they get Devontae to the Jets, I still think they're going to lose to Pittsburgh, and they got blown out. Now, the reason why they lost wasn't the reason I thought it was going to be. I thought maybe Steelers defense shuts them down and the Steelers edge them out. The biggest, of course, take from that, outside of the Jets being sunk at 2-5, is Russell Wilson. Not a huge fan of his. The let's ride. The interception at the end zone was just, I don't care who calls that play. Hand it to Marshawn. Don't be an idiot. But point being is that he played, in my opinion, the best game I've seen him play probably since that interception in the Super Bowl. He looked fresh. He looked healthy. He looked like a player that was playing free and easy, kind of like whatever happens, happens. And he looked poised. A good Jets defense, not an elite Jets defense. I think that they're a little overrated in the defense, but they're not bad. They're just not top 3 by any means, rushing defense in particular. But he was throwing all over the yard. George Pickens burned me in fantasy. He was great. He had 100 plus yards and a touchdown. The long ball, the let Russ cook moonshot was back. He looked pretty good. Still not afraid of the Steelers. I don't think they can come in and beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead by any means. We'll see them late in the season, so we'll find out. Christmas night, I believe, actually. But point being is that he looked really good, and the Steelers could be doing some dirty work for us against the Ravens, against the Bengals, maybe eliminating the Bengals, knocking the Ravens down a peg or two, and allowing us to capture the 1 seed with a little bit of their help in that tough division. But Steelers looked really good. Jets, like I said, I called it. Devontae Adams would not help them, especially in this first game against the Steelers. I think the Steelers are pretty dang good. They're coached well. Their defense is absolutely fantastic. They've played defense there since the 70s. The defensive culture is, baked into the ground there. I mean, it just is what they do. And then, like I said, they had a big time spark from Russell Wilson. Honestly, can't really believe my eyes on what was happening. He didn't have any games like that in Denver that I watched, but he played really well. But the Jets, they're not quite sunk yet. Their record is really bad at 2-5. That being said, they have like a 4th place schedule, a 3rd place schedule. They're in a bad division. They're going to play Miami multiple times. They're going to play the Patriots multiple times. And they just have a 4th place schedule. They're going to be able to, if they can win 3 in a row, then they're 500 with 7 games left. I mean, who knows? I wouldn't say their season is over, but they cannot afford another loss in the next month. They got to run off some games. That was their hardest game they're going to have for a while. And let's see if they can beat up on some tomato cans and get back in it, because I'd hate to see that. I think the Jets still have a lot of top-tier talent, but they don't look like they're playing like a team, and they're overrated defensively. So congrats to the Steelers. They are officially a contender in the AFC in the playoff race, and I would say that division as well. I'm going to talk about the Ravens here in literally just my next topic, but I think they can compete with the Ravens in that division. So let's just jump right into the next game, and that was the Ravens and the Bucks. Watched that game. Of course, I picked the Bucks plus 3.5. Started out like I looked like a genius. Mike Evans was wide open, caught a touchdown pass on the first drive, no problem, 7-0. And then they came back down again. Had a penalty. I took a touchdown off the board in the red zone to Godwin. Settled for the field goal. They were up 10-0. But the second that happened, I was like, they left a little bit of meat on the bone. And they could be up a couple of scores already. They were a few yards away from doing that. And then Ravens score touchdown. Mike Evans. And then this is kind of the critical drive that kind of spoiled it for the audience in my pick, and especially for the Bucks. The Evans injury. They were like on the 15, 20-yard line. It was like kind of maybe a 3rd down play, kind of a go route, and he caught it in the back of the end zone, right in his hands, and catches it 99 times out of 100. Obviously hurts his hamstring on the play. I think that affected his catching simply because he doesn't drop that kind of an easy pass at his level. And immediately on the way down, he was grabbing his hamstring, and he was done, obviously, for the game. And 2 plays later, so it wasn't 3rd down, 2nd down, a play later or whatever it was, Baker Mayfield threw a terrible interception, held on to the ball for 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and flipped a lollipop out there that was easily intercepted. And that really was the game. I mean, you could have been up 17-7. You just take, Mike Evans has 2 touchdowns. The place is going crazy. You're up 10 again, mid-second quarter. Instead, Baltimore had all the momentum. Mike Evans was gone. Baltimore's down 3 with the ball in the first half, and they knew that they caught a break, took great advantage of it. Lamar made a really nice Lamar play, rolled out wide open. Their secondary was terrible. Bateman was wide open on that drive. They end up for a 60-yarder. They end up punching it in, and it was over from there. Now, of course, the Ravens offense is very, very good, and the Buccaneers defense really really did not has a shell of themselves from that Super Bowl a few years back, and man, there's people running wide open. But of course, the biggest news of that game, obviously, the Ravens were running away with it after that big momentum change, after Mike Evans got out. But in garbage time, down 10 at midfield with a few seconds left, no timeouts, Chris Godwin gets tackled awkwardly, and his ankle is done, and he's going to be done for the year, and we might not ever see him again. He himself said that, so we'll just kind of take it day by day, or he will take it day by day with that. But point being is that he is done. Mike Evans is going to be gone for a month. We play them in 2 weeks at home. That's got to be I hate to, don't root for anybody to get hurt. Those players, Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer. They were comparing him to Randy Moss and Marvin Harrison and total touchdowns. I mean, all those guys have Hall of Fame logos behind their nameplates and their pictures. And Mike Evans will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. 100 catches. He's done it, I believe, with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a rarity, kind of like the Megatron thing, where he's just synonymous with that city, and that kind of can put you over the edge in those votes. Because legacy does matter there. He is, of course, a Super Bowl champion, beating Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs with Tom Brady. He will be a Hall of Famer, and seeing him go down, and I don't know if God will make the Hall of Fame, but he's a heck of a player too. And without those two guys, I mean, you're going to have a tough go at Arrowhead Stadium. I believe it's a Monday night. I feel bad for those guys, but those are their probably their top two players before Baker Mayfield, and they're going to be in trouble with that. And their secondary looked really bad. The Ravens have a great run offense. Lamar and Justice Hill and Derrick Henry, all those guys can really run the ball. They got great jet sweep action with Flowers, and there's another guy there that's decent speed wise. But this is not a drop back passing game type offense. They can do that. They showed it last night against a bad secondary, but the Bucs secondary, man, that was a really poor showing. They did lose one of their defensive backs, but I mean, I think the Ravens had 30 points by the time they lost him. So the Chiefs should be able to have some success in that secondary throwing the ball, and obviously that's the last thing that the entire team is missing. So don't foresee that being a problem. That's going to really hopefully jettison us to a 9-0 start. So Sunday night, Monday night, the Chargers lost to the Cardinals. Thanks, Cardinals. You did us a solid. Wasn't worried about either of those teams anyway. I think the Chargers are hyped up to try to combat the Chiefs in the division, and people are wishing and trying to speak something into existence that's not there, especially this year. Maybe in the next couple of years they get an explosive addition. But you can't Mahomes it like Mahomes can with our lack of explosive players. Whereas Herbert is not Mahomes. He's a good player, but he's not Mahomes. So great games, a lot of storylines. Had to recap that as we move forward here. So moving forward, we are going to talk about the reason why the Chiefs are better than the Ravens. Right now, it's the Chiefs and the Ravens. It's a two-headed race. With the Bills and the Houston Texans kind of in that next tier. But everybody right now is talking about how the Ravens can't be beat. I think it's disrespectful. I think it's silly. I think it's something that Chiefs fans need to kind of have a chip on their shoulder about, because the disrespect in this capacity is absolutely ridiculous. We have 3 Super Bowl championships in 5 years, 4 appearances. We have beaten the Ravens, I believe, the last at least 2 times, if not 3 times. One of them being this year, a month and a half ago. Obviously have a better defense than them. Obviously have a better coach than them, even though I believe it's John Harbaugh is a quality coach, and he's not Andy Reid. He doesn't have the effect on the game like Andy Reid does with Andy Reid's offensive system. And then you easily had the best defensive coordinator. And then let's not talk about the quarterbacks. Now, Lamar is good. He's good. He's fast. He's electric. He's about as close as you can get to a weapon as Mahomes is. But he's not Mahomes. He's not the passer that Mahomes is. He's not as clutch as Mahomes is. And he doesn't have the arm strength. Now, he did have one good throw last night that was pretty deep, but I'm telling you, the rings and the clutchness and the January success is the separator, and that's just undeniable. Lamar has been a shell of himself in the playoffs, and just because he's out beating the Mike Evans-less Bucks on Monday Night Football with a porous defense doesn't mean they can come beat the Chiefs. Better coach, better defense, better quarterback. I mean, those three things are going to be pretty tough to overcome, and I'm all about saying the Ravens are good. They're our number one contender. It's probably going to be a rematch at Arrowhead Stadium. Man, that would be a heck of a ticket and a heck of an event to watch in person. But they cannot be rated higher than us. They have lost to the Raiders, and I'll just leave it at that. Moving on, let's talk about my newest segment, and that's going to be our power rankings. I am going to start taking off the top 10 teams that I think are who we need to focus on. It's not always going to be teams that you may think are there, but I think of teams that might make a run. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. This is my first inaugural power rankings on the Fanatic podcast. I will go from 1 to 10. A lot of people know they like to go 10 to 1, but the 1 to 10, the first three are obvious. Let's just get them out of the way. Okay, of course, the Chiefs are the number one team. Don't want to have this conversation. You're going to blink and we're going to be 9-0. We're going to have home field advantage, barring something weird and a couple of weird losses. We're going to get a little bit healthier. Not a lot healthier, but we're going to get healthier. And we're going to be 2 wins away from the divisional round. And the Ravens are going to be hosting the Steelers, at home as the 3 seed. So don't talk to me about who the number one team in the league is. The next team is the Detroit Lions. It has to be. They were in the NFC Championship last year. Their offense is a juggernaut. Their offensive line is a juggernaut. Weapons all over the place. Dual-headed monster in the backfield. Montgomery seems to be fine. Telling you, that's the team that I foresee getting out of that conference. It's almost destined that they're going to get there. They should have got there last year, and they're just the most complete team. Yes, Aiden Hutchinson went down. I think their defense outside of him is a little underrated. They've played a tough schedule, and they've hung in there, and they're 5-1, and their quarterback's playing out of his mind. And weapons-wise, pure weapons-wise, they are probably even better than San Francisco. I know he got in a little bit of trouble. He'll be back. Jamison Williams, he's really come on the scene. Obviously, St. Brown is fabulous. The dual-headed monster in the backfield. They have a guy named Raymond, last name of Raymond, that's 6'4", and fast, and he catches the ball and he makes plays. And then their tight end, Sam Laporta, who's the number one fantasy tight end last year. There's not even enough footballs to go around. He's, an amazing tight end, and they're throwing it to the second tight end because he's pretty decent too. I mean, they have literally a player at every single position. Where the Ravens don't have that is at wide receiver. And so I think that's why their offense is better, and that's why I put them at number 2. Number 3, of course, is the Baltimore Ravens. They've won 5 in a row. Yes, they lost to the Raiders. Yes, they lost to us by a toenail. Their quarterback is the closest option to Patrick Mahomes outside of Patrick Mahomes. Their run defense is good. They have Derrick Henry. He had a weird touch game. He low on touches, but he had the one break and he seems fine. But Derrick Henry's been, the man. Rashad Bateman, I think, is their best player outside of those 2 guys. Yes, Zay Flowers is a finesse guy and fast, but Bateman has made the bigger plays in the more crucial moments. I think, you take that 1 half by Zay Flowers out against the Commanders in the first half of that game, then Bateman's definitely been better in my opinion. So those are the top 3. I think those 3 teams are clear cut above everybody else, and then there's definitely a step down after that. I had the Minnesota Vikings. They could have been there. They had their shot. I touched base on it on Sunday. They got too conservative. They had the lead. They're at home. They run it up the gut twice. One weird pass on 3rd and 7. They never see the ball again, lose at the buzzer. Throw it to Justin Jefferson 3 times. You're in the top 3 of the power rankings. You deserve to lose that game. Kansas City does it all the time. We just have Patrick Mahomes to make it happen on 3rd down, and you have Sam Darnold. throw it 3 times. You probably win that game and probably win the division if you are more aggressive there. That was a big mistake, but they're still at 4. Only losses to the Lions. We'll see what they do against the Rams. Might be in my picks, so stay tuned for that. And the next one is an easy one. The Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers look fantastic. Jordan Love looks fantastic. That was a heck of a drive to end the game. He's throwing the ball all over the place, leading the league in touchdown passes. Baker was next. He just lost his next 2 receivers. Put your money on Jordan Love to lead the league in touchdown passes this year. They have a plethora of young B-plus wide receivers to throw it to, Watson and Dobbs, and they have another guy. Jacobs out of the backfield. And their defense is flying around. Green Bay Packers are a serious threat. Lions-Packers divisional matchup in the NFC Championship. Likely, and it would be a heck of a game. Sign me up for that one. The next one, we're shifting back to the AFC, and it's kind of the more that next Chiefs threat, and that's the Houston Texans. Everybody's kind of down on them right now. I don't know why. I still have them pretty high up there. They lost at Lambeau Field, a historic location against a really good Packers team, and they lost it on a last-second field goal, a nip-and-tuck game, multiple turnovers by each team, and that game could have gone either way. That was not a domination game by either team. Coin flip game on the road. And I don't think they had Nico Collins in that game. Yeah, Nico Collins got hurt the week before. When Nico Collins gets back, man, it's a soft tissue. It might linger. Hamstrings are no fun. Ask Mike Evans, ask Kadarius Toney, ask anybody that's had a freaking, hamstring injury. But he's going to be back at some point this year, and when he does, they were lighting it up. Now maybe they're playing these bad divisional teams, Colts and Titans and shit when they were doing that, but man, that offense is scary. Their running back is really good. C.J. Stroud's a fabulous thrower of the football in the pocket. Their defense is well above average. People aren't talking about their defense enough. They have a couple losses. So what? I mean, they have the biggest injury to their second best player, and C.J. Stroud lost a coin flip game to Jordan Love. They're great. This is probably the second least team I'd like to see in the playoffs after the Ravens would be the Houston Texans. Even with Amari Cooper, I think the Bills would be after the Houston Texans, and they are lower on my power rankings. So the next is the Eagles. I have the Eagles at number 7. The Eagles, people were sleeping on the Eagles. A couple videos ago, I mentioned that the NFC North might have four teams that get in. That's not going to happen, I don't think, simply due to the Commanders and the Eagles. The Eagles still have that amazing roster. They now have the addition of Saquon Barkley. Similar to the Chiefs, if the Eagles ever figure out how to get the passing offense and Jalen Hurts not to throw the football and just be a drop more efficient in that and not be boom or bust and be in a 0-0 game at 4th and 1, connect on your first bomb. Like, if they can figure that out, they're going to be a tough team. Their defense, not too familiar with their defense. That being said, they have a good culture there. They've always had good defensive lines and good fronts. I think they'll be good enough defensively. But I like the Eagles. Their offense is great. If Jalen Hurts doesn't throw interceptions, that's a team that plays 1st and 9 football. I mean, they're going for it. They're aggressive. Their running back's great. Their receivers are amazing. And A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, dude, they're good. And after the Lions, the next team I would not want to see in the Super Bowl would be a rematch of the Eagles. That would not be fun. Okay, and I see them being successful and probably winning the division just because Jalen's a rookie, and I think the Eagles can go on a run. The Bills are the next one, number 8, Buffalo Bills. Of course, they just made the trade for Cooper. I think that's a big deal. They were really not an offensive juggernaut when playing teams that are not horrible. Their schedule continued last week to be easy cakewalk. They played the Tennessee Titans, scored 34 points, blew them out. And of course, before that, their divisional opponents have been terrible, and the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots, and they played somebody else. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, they were paired. Their division's terrible, and it looks like they were paired up with the AFC South. So they're basically playing 6 games against the 2 worst divisions, maybe in the league, but definitely in the AFC. 4 division winners schedule. They got a cakewalk of a schedule. I haven't looked at their schedule, but it's got to toughen up for them. And I think the addition of Amari Cooper will be better than the addition of Devontae Adams in New York. But I don't think it's enough to take them over the top. They're going to be the 3 seed, the 4 seed, and they're going to have to, go to Baltimore, go to Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl, and I don't think that'll happen. And their defense is way overrated. Defense is overrated. Their numbers are inflated. They've looked good on a couple of primetime games because they're playing pop gun offenses, and Tua doesn't play the last third of the game because he gets hurt, and Jacksonville's a mess. I'm telling you, their defense is going to get exposed very, very soon. Heck, the Ravens already did it to them, and everybody forgot about that game. They played a one-quality opponent this entire season, and they got waxed. So I would not be, they're on the power rankings. They're number 8, but I believe they're the 4th in the AFC. Chiefs, Ravens, Texans, Bills. Those are the 4 teams. Obviously, they're all probably going to win their division, respectively. Ravens fighting for this against the Steelers. Okay, number 9 is the Commanders. I believe they're 5-1. No, sorry, they're 4-2 or 5-2 now. They're 5-2. They just destroyed the Carolina Panthers. Jaden gets hurt. It's an oblique, I believe. We'll see how long he's out. He might miss a game. He might not. He's going to do everything to be out there. He's having an unbelievable season. He's going to be the Rookie of the Year. I don't think it's a question as long as you can put another 5 games together like he's been doing. I don't think he'll win MVP. I think Lamar is going to actually take that. Just it's a stats record, and if Lamar's a 2 seed and he's got 40 touchdown passes and 800 yards rushing, he's just going to get it. It's just a stats deal. Unless the Chiefs go undefeated, that's a different conversation. And then finally, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Round everything out at number 10. They are tied with the Ravens at number 1 in that division. Their defense is elite. I think the Chiefs and the Steelers are the top 2 defenses in the National Football League. And you have, of course, the emergence of Russell Wilson. It's one game. It's against a 2-4 team that has an overrated defense. They were at home. And his first few drives didn't look good, but he got going. And so it's going to really depend on whether they can get to the AFC Championship game or get to their ceiling, whatever that may be. Russ is going to have to continue to do what he's doing after that first game, and it is a small sample size. But they're 5-2. They've played. I don't know. Their schedule has been tough. They played that division. That's right. They have a weird schedule where all their divisional games at the end. Don't know exactly what their schedule has been like, but I know their defense is very, very good. T.J. Watt is probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. He's a sack machine, and they ran the ball. They ran the ball pretty well. Now, a lot of people have been running the ball in the Jets, but they also threw it well. So that's my power rankings, 1 to 10. Chiefs, Lions, Ravens, Vikings, Packers, Houston Texans, Philadelphia Eagles, Bills, Commanders, and Steelers. In the comments, put down if you like my power rankings or not. Any arguments, any changes you think I should make. But I think that's a pretty solid list of the top 10 teams in the National Football League. We have, I believe, five representatives from each conference there. The Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, the Eagles, and the Commanders, and the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Houston Texans, the Buffalo Bills, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers. 5-5, top 5 in each conference. Wasn't planning on talking about this, but I'll quickly segue into it. I think it's an important point, especially when I point that out, 5-5. The AFC has been the big brother of the NFC for a long time now. Ever since Patrick Mahomes came into the AFC, these AFC bottom-feeding teams have been like, okay, that's how they did it, so it's time for us to get a quarterback, right? Well, the Lamars were drafted, the Allens were drafted, the Burrows were drafted, the Strouds were drafted, the Trevor Lawrences were all drafted, and all of them aren't as good as Patrick Mahomes, and they're basically not throwing the white flag by any means, but they're saying, hey, there's not that many more quarterbacks for us to draft. The Colts got Richardson. I mean, everybody is trying to grab that quarterback after Mahomes, and so what's happening is those teams have their quarterback, and they say, okay, he's okay. We've signed this big contract, and now what's happening is that the NFC teams are now doing that, i.e. the Jaden Daniels, and there was another really good example of that too. So I can't quite think of, but point being is that the AFC has kind of taken their shots at getting a quarterback that can match him, a.k.a. Mahomes, and they're kind of stuck with what they got. They got him locked in. They say, okay, it's close enough, and now the NFC is doing the same thing. And the NFC is getting harder. The whole NFC North is amazing. Obviously, the Eagles and the Commanders are doing great. The 49ers from last year, not quite on my power rankings, but they're 12 or 13, something like that. Even with the losing record, they're heck of a roster, obviously. So the NFC, that the scales are tipping back to being more 50-50 or even more NFC over AFC outside of the top couple. So a very interesting thing to see over the last 5 years. AFC teams quickly reacting to the Mahomes success and the Mahomes, inevitability, and realizing we have to somehow compete with this guy on some kind of level. And it's all a chain reaction, a domino effect from the best player on earth being drafted and coming to fruition and having his emergence. All of these dominoes, all of these players, all of these quarterbacks that are being drafted, and now the NFC is doing the same. That's what it was. Caleb Williams with the Bears. They have realized that you have to be able to match the Kansas City Chiefs in some percentage in the quarterback category. And we are way up here. And now these teams are saying, okay, we have to get our guy that can somehow copy that magic to some degree, or we have no chance. And so because of that, all the AFC teams have done that already, and now it's the NFC's turn. Jalen Hurts was drafted not that long ago, and so that's just kind of the domino effect from the Chiefs' Patrick Mahomes' greatness. It's just obvious. I'm no expert. I just follow the league, and this is something that is as easy as anything to see. It's pretty obvious. So going to get to my preview here of some games that I see coming up this week that are going to be interesting, and then we'll get to pick my betting picks here in a minute. But we're going to spend about 90 seconds simply talking about how this channel is not super thrilled about the baseball playoffs. It's New York, it's LA, 7-gamer for all the marbles, and they got maybe more money in those two franchises than the entire rest of the league combined. It's going to be $600+ million series. If you like big stars, if you like runs, if you like errors, if you like slow baseball players outside of Ohtani trucking, jogging around with the Judges and the Stantons and the Freddie Freemans of the world who just haven't stole a base since I was in middle school, then that's the series for you. Defense is not going to be at a premium. It's going to be how many home runs can we hit, and not how many strikeouts can we get the other team to do. I will pick Dodgers in 6, hopefully 5, because I don't like the Yankees. But I will say Dodgers in 6 in that series. I just think they have even more star power and even a bigger payroll. I think the Yankees pitching staff is overrated. Outside of Garrett Cole, their starters will get hit by this LA Dodger lineup. And of course the ever shining star in Shohei Ohtani. I don't think it's going to be too big of a stage for him at all. I expect a big series out of him, and him vaulting the Los Angeles Dodgers to their world championship this year. I just don't see the Yankees stopping them. Yankees have 27 championships. I think number 28 is going to have to wait. So back to the NFL. Enough about the big market, buy your championship style sport. We are going to talk about some really fun matchups this week. Grab my notes here. But the matchups that I kind of noticed are kind of relatively obvious because, once again, throughout the rest of this season on this channel, we're going to be monitoring the teams that the Chiefs are racing. And those are those 3 other AFC teams in the power rankings. Bills versus Seahawks. I believe it's Bills at Seahawks. Don't have the line here. Not in my picks. I think it's close. Minus 2.5 for the Bills, something like that. But that's a big game. Geno Smith, I was dogging on him and saying he wasn't very good, and I don't think he's championship level by any means. They played really well against him. They beat the Falcons a lot better than the Chiefs did. He lit up the stat sheet, and their defense had their best game by far. I started Kirk Cousins, and he was projected 19 points in fantasy, and he had like 7. So, kudos to the Seahawks, and hopefully they keep it rolling and take a chunk out of the Bills and slow their momentum after Cooper. I think the Bills will win barely, late field goal, defensive stop, up a touchdown, something like that. It won't be a blowout by any means, and they have good home field there, and they're coming off a nice win in the Seahawks. But it's going to be an entertaining game. The Seahawks throw it all over the place. Their running back Walker, he is a really good player. As long as he's healthy, he's definitely putting butts in the seats. Not really record-wise, but it's going to be an interesting storyline with Niners and the Cowboys. As some of the older generation, I'm sure, grew up watching the 49ers and the Cowboys in late January, playing in the Dome in comfortable 70-degree weather in Cowboy Stadium during the Cowboys dynasty in the 90s. Just unbelievable history with those franchises. I believe they both have 5 Super Bowl championships. I know the 49ers have 5. I believe the Cowboys have 5 as well, with Aikman and Staubach, I believe. But just the pedigree of those two franchises, the history of those two franchises with all of their success and their postseason matchups. I believe it's at Cowboys. Great. The storyline of this game is the loser is going to be the main story moving forward and what's going to happen with that franchise. You have the 3-3 Cowboys who haven't won a home game since January of maybe December of last year. They've lost like 3 or 4 straight, including that shellacking by the Packers in last season's divisional round. Wild card round. And then the Niners, they're riddled with injuries. They're 3-4. Their schedule's really hard going forward. If they fall to 3-5, it doesn't matter if CMC comes back. They're not going to make the playoffs. Their schedule's just too hard, and they're just too hurt. Pneumonia with Debo. Ayuk, he's tore like every ligament in his knee. He is done. That's a great-looking contract. Should have kept Debo over Ayuk. Sorry. That's, in my opinion, no-brainer. Just look at the physiques and their skill sets. But yeah, great history. Should be an entertaining game. Both desperate teams. Desperate. Got to have a win. Both teams will have losing records afterwards. Niners would be 3-5. Cowboys would be 3-4. And either way, the sky will be falling in either Dallas or Santa Clara. We'll definitely be watching that game. Ravens-Browns, divisional game. Could be weird. Ravens are probably going to roll them. That being said, it's the Ravens. We got to watch these Ravens games. We got to see if they can find a way to slip up. Definitely thought it was going to be last night. Looked like I was going to be right. Looked like I was going to be 3 for 3 on my picks, and sure looked that way through the first quarter. But once Evans went down, it was over. I mentioned in my last video that if Evans was out, I wasn't going to bet it. He was a game time decision, but it ended up playing and getting his 100th touchdown, getting his 100th touchdown, but nothing much after that. That was too big of a momentum swing. So Ravens-Browns, we're going to monitor. Another sneaky one, what's kind of a similar template, is Houston versus the Colts. It's -6 to Houston. The Colts are a weird team, man. They just are. They can light up the scoreboard or they can lay a dud. Divisional games are weird. I believe it's at Colts. So hopefully the Colts can take another chunk out of Houston. So those are kind of my, marquee games to watch. Of course, outside of the Chiefs, shellacking the Oakland, Vegas Oakland Raiders, whatever you want to call them. There'll be more red there in the stands, and I'm looking forward to listening to Home of the Chiefs as we kick off a game in Las Vegas, as we did in February. That was a fun one. So those are my headlining games to watch. Just, teams were racing. The Niners-Cowboys is an interesting deal. So keep an eye out for those games. Should all be entertaining. Hopefully not a blowout in the Ravens game. Okay. 2-1 in our picks. Should have been 3-0 if Mike Evans plays the whole game. Let's call it what it is. It was about to be 17-7 if he hangs on to that ball. Odds are we can lose by 3 at that point. Too big of a momentum swing. So we will take the L there. We are still 2-1 on the channel. So it is now time for Kyle's picks once again. We're going 3 picks every week. We, of course, are going to keep track of them throughout the rest of the week. See if we can keep the winning track rolling. So, similar theme to last week. Last week, we were picking against bad teams. I saw a couple of more opportunities to get our money in against some bad teams playing some quality opponents. And one line was just absolutely bonkers to me. Let me wet my whistle here. One line was absolutely bonkers to me. But this one's not quite as bonkers on the line, but it's still an easy bet for me. It's the Jets over the Patriots. They're at Patriots. Yes, they're laying 7 points. The Jets are pissed. Aaron Rodgers is pissed. Davante Adams is pissed. They have more time at practice for a week or so to get them all on the same page. He didn't even know it plays. I mean, he'd been there a day and a half. How many plays could he know, right? So they're going to have maybe a little more polish and into their routine a little bit more. The Patriots are an absolute disaster. A mad Aaron Rodgers, a great offensive, talented team over there. I think they're just going to be ready to go. Pissed of last week, pissed about where they are, and they're gonna roll the Patriots. Lay the 7 points. They'll beat them by 17. Call it a day. These were both kind of interesting, one more so than the others. I got Minnesota laying 3 against the Rams. They're at the Rams. It's Thursday Night Football. Weird things happen on Thursday Night Football. But you know what? The weird thing might be that they just beat the heck out of the Rams. They're mad. They just lost on that last second field goal. They were too conservative, like I keep talking about. They're going to be upset. Their defense is spectacular. They were hanging in, doing their best they could against the Lions. The Lions, of course, have an amazing offense, and they gave up 30, but it was a weird 30. They scored 21 in a row, and then outside of that, they scored 9, or 10. So I'm going to lay 3 against Minnesota. I think they, against the Rams in Los Angeles. Puka Nacua is not back. Cooper Kupp might be back. I tried to look into that. I couldn't quite figure that out if he's back or not. Either way, I don't think that will be enough. I think Minnesota wins by a touchdown, or maybe even a weird score like 27-23, something like that, and we get the win there. Minnesota's just the more complete team. I mean, the Rams had a heck of a defensive performance and like 4 defensive turnovers against the Raiders at home just to win. So lay the 3, take the better team, take the 5-1 team over the 2-4 team, lay the 3 points and cash in with the Minnesota Vikings. And then this was the line. I talked about it a second ago. I think this line should have another 3 points on it. It's the Green Bay Packers going into Jacksonville. We're only giving up 4.5 points. Jacksonville has been terrible. They've beaten the Patriots and the Dolphins, maybe? I don't know what's going on with Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence looks like a shell of himself. The Packers are great offensively. They're solid defensively. They're going to go in there and blow the doors off the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville has spent the last 3 weeks in London, okay, eating fish and chips, okay? Like, they're going to come back at home and get absolutely manhandled by Jordan Love and these boys. Their defense is terrible. He's going to have time to throw. They got weapons all over the place. They're going to score points. They're going to beat him by at least 7. I would lay 6.5 and take this line. Thank you for only giving me 4.5 point deficit to start the game, taking a much, much better team than the Jags. So really feel good about my picks. Felt good about my picks last week, and we should have gone 3-0. Jets laying 7 against the Pats, picking against a bad team and for a motivated team and a talented team. Minnesota giving up 3 against the Rams. Top 5 in my power rankings, top 5 in most people's power rankings. Rams defense had a good defense, good game last week statistically with the interceptions, but they were playing Gardner Minshew, who was backing up Aiden O'Connell. I mean, come on. And then, of course, you have the Packers only laying 4.5 against the Jags. As you notice here, I like favorites. I've always liked favorites a little bit. Give me the better team, lay a couple of points, and hopefully over the course of a 4-quarter game, the bad team shows its true colors and makes it a deficit that they can't overcome and take the win. So we will keep track of that. My first one's on Thursday night with Minnesota and the Rams. So hopefully after Thursday night, we are sitting at 3-1. So let's shift gears back to the Chiefs just for a minute, and then we're going to wrap up the show with the Milwaukee Bucks and the NBA getting started here tonight and tomorrow. So what I want to talk about the Chiefs about is still we need a trade. Yes, we're winning games. Yes, our defense is great. Yes, our coaching staff is ham and egging it and beating people with jet sweeps with Mecole Hardman. I get all of that. Mahomes is making pump fake plays and running around Fred Warner, and you can't bank on it. You can't bank on it. The passing game has been an issue. He threw for $150 again. His previous low was like $150, so that was basically his worst passing game again. He's had his 2 worst passing games in his career this season. We've played decent defenses, but it is not enough. November 9th, by that date, they need to make a trade. A couple of players we haven't talked about yet in my videos that have kind of popped up in the last couple of days is Mike Evans and Cooper Kupp. The Cooper Kupp one, if it happens, thank you, Lord. I mean, it's literally a godsend. As long as he can stay healthy, he'll be wide receiver number 1 and will be by far the favorite, if we're not already, that everybody will be unanimously saying we're going to win it if we can get Cooper Kupp. Apparently, he is being shopped around a little bit. However, the most realistic one would be Mike Williams for the New York Jets. He got traded from the Los Angeles Chargers last year. They thought he was kind of be the big vertical jump up and grab the ball in a 50-50 contested deal from Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he had an injury or a holdout or a sickness or something. I think he missed a little bit of training camp. And they have not looked like they're on the same page. Multiple game-losing interceptions for the Jets have been on passes targeted to Mike Williams. They made the trade for Davante Adams. You don't need Adams and Wilson and Williams and Breece Hall, and they have another receiver that's halfway decent. You don't need all those guys. They just gave up something for Davante Adams. They want a little something in return. We don't play the Jets this year, so it's not like they would see Mike Williams later down in week 16 or something like that. If they're playing the Chiefs in the divisional round, you told them that right now, they would take it. So they're not going to care if they're seeing the Chiefs at Arrowhead because they just want to make the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs in 13 years. That is the longest active streak in the National Football League, and maybe even North American sports. I don't know. That being said, I like the Mike Williams. Between the two, I like the Mike Williams one a little bit better. Cooper Kupp's been seriously injured, and the cap hit wouldn't be as bad, and obviously it's more realistic. I mean, teams might protest, teams might, burn a stadium down or something if we get Cooper Kupp, and so that just might not be in the cards just due to the fact that it's giving him to us. But it's an NFC AFC thing. The Rams wouldn't, be seeing us. Obviously, we don't play them this year, Maybe Brett Veach can make it happen, and obviously I would pick Cooper Kupp over Mike Williams. But the reason why I'm more excited about the Mike Williams thing is that I think he's athletically the best pure athlete we've had since Tyreek Hill. He actually adds a nice different element than what we currently have. We have Worthy and Hardman, and they're both fast. They're decent-handed, but they're smaller. And it's not going to be the catch radius, grab you the 7 yards you need on 3rd and 5. I think Mike Williams can do that. He can also be a vertical guy. Mike Williams is someone that would really be a huge addition. Imagine if Hollywood Brown could get back. You'd have Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Mike Williams, Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, Noah Gray. Let's go. I mean, we can handle it with that. Obviously, Rashee Rice is not coming back this year. Hollywood Brown, there's a snowball's chance. If he and Mike Williams are on this roster with this defense and this ball control and this offensive line and Kareem Hunt, and we give them enough time to gel with Mahomes and, Mike Williams would have since, from November 9th, so he'd have plenty of time. That is enough horses, enough enough bullets in the holster to beat anybody, and I would feel we would be favored in every single game just on a talent perspective. Even the Ravens, because it would be at home, we'd be favored by 2.5 or something like that because we're the home team. We would be favored every single playoff game, adding Mike Williams, and if a Hollywood Brown could come back, that would be a big deal. Cooper Kupp would be great. Don't think it's realistic. So keep an eye out. That's coming up. That's literally 2.5 weeks. We will know whether or not the Chiefs are going to make a trade. That might be a special video for me to get on for a quick 20, 30-minute piece on who we get before the 9th. So stay tuned for that. Okay. Wrapping everything up, we're not just talking about football on this channel. Obviously, we're talking about baseball and the NBA, MLB, NBA. Obviously, MLB wrapped up. At least for our purposes, we are not excited about the LA New York series. Won't be watching. I'll quickly comment on the scores, and we'll look forward to a more interesting team winning it next year. But the NBA is kicking off tonight with the Boston Celtics. They are playing the New York Knickerbockers after their trade of Randall and Karl-Anthony Towns with the Minnesota Timberwolves with new look Knicks. So that'll be an interesting game. They probably kick off here in just a few minutes if they aren't already. Tip off. And then wraps up with, of course, the LeBron Bronny show. Who would have thought that would have opened up the season, but it's just ridiculous. But they are playing the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. So that gets started. But, of course, our favorite team on this channel is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. And I've talked about it before. I'll talk about it again. There's a variety of reasons why I follow the Milwaukee Bucks. They are a bigger city, but compared to the New Yorks, the LAs, the San Franciscos, the Philadelphias, and yada, 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 they are a small market team in comparison to that. How they are talked about on the national scale is not as high as it is with those bigger market teams, even the Miami Heat, for example. So love that team. Obviously, I have ties to Portland, Oregon. I've spent a lot of time there. Went to many Portland Trailblazers game. They are the definition of a small market team. They won it in the 70s, I believe, with, I think, Clyde Drexler and those guys, if I'm correct on that. Don't quote me on that. It was well before I was alive. But point being is that they have had one. They do have one championship, but they're not talked about. They're not in the national media. They're on ESPN, 3 out of their 82 games. And of course, I've really enjoyed watching Damian Lillard play. He was traded finally, after years of service with the Portland Trailblazers, seeing pieces get shipped out like the McCollums of the world. He requested a trade and moved to Milwaukee Bucks, and he's officially on a contender. Had really bad luck last year with the Giannis Antetokounmpo injury. Really didn't get a fair shot as far as Dame in the playoffs. Said he's coming back, Giannis that is, but it came out afterwards that he wasn't even close. He was never coming back, and they're gearing up for one more run. I believe Chris Middleton's still on the team. You got Bobby Portis is fun to watch, and Giannis is obviously the Greek freak. He's absolute blast to watch, and then like I said, my opinion, the second best shooter of all time in Damian Lillard. Accuracy wise from deep, he's statistically more accurate from deep than Steph Curry is. Steph Curry is just more of a volume guy and does it more, and doesn't shoot it from as deep as Dame does on a consistent basis. Yes, Steph Curry is famous for his range. Don't get me wrong, he has fabulous range, but compared to Damian Lillard shoots it from deep more and has a higher percent accuracy from deep. And what I mean by deep, not just from three, from like deep three, like 38 feet out. That's what I'm referring to, not just shooting threes from an extended range like a logo three. That's the kind of accuracy I'm talking about from Damian Lillard. But of course, still the second greatest shooter ever. So Milwaukee Bucks, I got the first 10 games for the Milwaukee Bucks coming up. Obviously, they play 82 games. We're kind of going to look at it in chunks and kind of, try to go 7-3 in each of these chunks and put together a good record. They're not being talked about. They're being slept on. Nobody thinks the Bucks can make another run. They just won a championship a couple years back without Dame, and now they do have Dame. Now they're a little older, but Giannis is still in his prime, and Middleton needs to get up for a couple games, and they have some pieces around him. So I think the biggest difference from last year's team is they swapped out Damian Lillard with that really good defensive guard, Drew Holiday, and that hurt him defensively because Dame's not the defender he is. And once Giannis was gone, then you had no Giannis and no Drew Holiday, and your defense was just bad. So, but now they retool. Hopefully, Giannis can stay healthy throughout the year, and let's go through their first 10 games and what I see. So, it's hard. The first 10 games of the Bucks season is a difficult stretch. 5-4, 6-4 would be a fine record through these 10 games, and then we'll start playing the Pistons of the world after that. So it goes 76ers here tomorrow night, Bulls and Nets, those are winnable, and then the stretch comes here, 7 straight tough games. Champions of the league, Boston Celtics, Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant's back, going to be a candidate for Player of the Year this year. Doubleheader, back-to-back road games against the Cleveland Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell, the Spider, I believe they call him. He's a fabulous player. He signed a contract with Cleveland. We love that for small market sports, and good for him. They just don't have enough on that team around him, but the Cavs are good. They can score with anybody. And then a relatively easier game, you got to play Marketing, but you have the Jazz, Utah Jazz, and then we wrap up with the Knicks and the Celtics again. So 6 or 7 of those games are very, very difficult. And then, of course, just like you would believe naturally, the schedule softens up for the next 10. But 6-4 would be a great start. We are at the Philadelphia 76ers to get everything started tomorrow night. It should be a really interesting game. So keep an eye out for that. And that's what I have for y'all tonight. Recapping, week 8 is going to be a great week, but I think week 7 was by far the best week yet. Didn't show it in my video maybe, but man, I was really jacked after that. It really sunk in. I watched a lot of football that day, and I was super excited. But now tonight, it's really set in for us that the Chiefs should be looking at 9-0, should be ready to play the Bills as an undefeated team, and if you win that game and go 10-0, I don't care if the Ravens win out. We're going to get that 1 seed, and we've already talked about the importance for that. So, signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in for episode 4, week 8 preview. I do have a business trip this week. Might have to do a quick video on Thursday before I go, or we'll have to wait till Monday when I get back. So we'll take a look at that. Sunday or Monday will be the latest that a video gets posted. I might try to sneak one in on Thursday. So until then, thanks so much and appreciate you checking in, and we'll see you next time here on the Midwest Fanatic.